Okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the How It Works, profiling different types of businesses, different types of industry. I think last week we talked about cleaning, the week before daycare and all that. And now a lot of people have been asking me, especially for income properties, which I own a lot, the idea of coin operated machines, whether or not they are in an apartment or standalone. And it's interesting because we're moving away from coins, like who has coins? So hopefully they've adopted the technology. And I've got one of the best in this industry. He's been around for 35 years. So he knows his stuff very, very well. Chuck Post, welcome to the show. How are you?
Well, good, JT. Thank you for having me.
So let's sort of switch over from the coin operated, right, which is kind of like the word that's used. But I mean, is there such things as coins anymore, or everything is just really credit card operated? And if you have old machines, do they support the credit cards, or you have to change all of your machines from coin to basically the new world, or Apple Pay or credit cards or any of those things? I don't remember last time I've had any coins, to be completely honest with you.
There are many options coming out right now. There are companies that specifically make card systems. There are companies that use phone app, have apps that can be used on the phone. It does require the technology within the machine to use these things, and sometimes that's added on. But in some cases, it's a little more complicated. The equipment lasts about 12 years in a laundromat, of good, useful life. Excuse me, my puppy is getting my attention. About 12 years of good, useful life. And for that reason, when you retrofit, you can move into this direction. What's most popular is the hybrid store, taking quarters, but also with an option to use one of the other systems, either a phone app pay or a card system or one of those.
So let's take us from the beginning. Obviously, you're the top experts on a consultant. Let's say I want to start my own laundromat, right? Retail is much cheaper now because there's so many. COVID's kind of brought the opportunity. I imagine a lot of the rent a lot of the cost was the rent that you paid, right? Because a lot of them don't have staff, maybe one, but the ones I've seen hadn't had anybody, but I've seen one person walking around. So now you've got like a boom of retails and restaurants going out of business. So I imagine to get the rent down to open that would be a good time to get into the industry. Would you agree?
There's a lot of opportunity for new locations, and our industry is unique. I mean, we are an American dream business because it's the one business that people can buy and operate as a part-time business without giving up their normal source of income, or allows them the opportunity to enjoy their life more fully. It's very common for people to end up with several laundromats, earning high six figures and even into seven figures in this business. There are people that individually own as many as 300 laundries in this business. It's a fascinating business. It's a fascinating opportunity. And right now, the trend, of course, and this is being sped up with the COVID situation, but the trend right now is to go into more full service operations. In other words, the laundry itself is operated as a self-service machine by the customer still, although we do offer fluff and fold in a lot of locations now. And this is becoming very popular. We have a need for the attendant to be on duty. People like to go where they're wanted. So an attendant makes them feel wanted. It keeps the place clean and safe. So our models are improving to go after a greater market. Let me add something, if I may, JT, and then we can get into
your show, my friend.
Okay.
I own a lot of business. I don't own that one. And the problem is every time I get into this interview, I end up like starting one of those businesses. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, we'll talk later.
Next thing you know, I own 100. You're like, 300? I want 305. Like, that's the way I'm built.
That's right. Well, good for you. And you can do it. I'll tell you, that's a fact. And here's the other.
I just call you and tell you, hey, you tell me what I need to do, or anybody who's watching does the same thing, because why go through the aggravation?
We're a consulting company for that reason. We introduce the business and bring people into it and introduce them and train them into this business. So,
by the way, that's why I tell everybody, like, you can read books on it or go in there. I mean, I have a huge coaching business as well, and business, and you got to get a shortcut. And that's why people don't understand, like, the amount of time or mistakes you can make by not doing it. When you have somebody, it's like the ice cream guy. Like, I'm now getting into the ice cream business, ironically enough, after having an interview like you. And I was like, all right, let's talk to that guy. Let's call that guy. Let's see what it is. Let's work with them too, because you want to get it right. I think you could waste a lot of time. Go ahead to finish your point. Sorry.
Well, the point is this: is our opportunity is so much greater than the current volume represents, because 100% of the population washes their clothes. The job of the laundromat is to get them to come into their position. Now, we've been a very convenience-oriented business in the past, and the reason is simply the buyer market. See, the advantage of that inexperienced, easy to operate operator or business owner in the laundromat business also brings less ideas, less innovation, and a lot of them tend to be rather lazy, because you can in laundry. You can literally let that laundry go and just collect quarters and making sure somebody's cleaning it up and fixing the machines for several years without touching it, without doing any extra work. And then as that deteriorates, it becomes, less patronized, and eventually it becomes a problem, and the machines start to get bad, and then it's time for retooling, because the laundry's put there to last the lifetime of the property, and yet the equipment only lasts 12 years. So there's a dilemma there. And it's a very misunderstood business model. It's a very misunderstood investment model. But the problem is this: it's very easy to operate. So, that has to be balanced. Otherwise, the investment can be jeopardized. The anticipated return on the buy-in of a laundry is generally about 20% cash on cash. And I can tell you, you can screw up pretty good and still accomplish that in this business, as long as you buy right, as long as you don't make those big mistakes when you enter the business. If you go in fully aware, it's very doubtful you're going to make less than that amount. It's very likely you can make much more, because the modifications to the models can present the opportunity to expand the business a great deal, because most of them are underperforming. They rely on the convenience business, the low-income rental business, more than they do the general population. And that's shifting, and we're being very successful in the places where we do.
All right, so let's take it back. So I want to start something, or people here start back. What's the first step they got to take a look at it? I imagine like location, like where's the ideal location? Because obviously, I mean, I have a washer dryer, not that I use it, but I have a washer and dryer as well. So I imagine you have to pick certain areas that are lower income, or is that a myth that doesn't really matter?
Well, I mean, you have to go someplace with a population, because 100% of the people wash their clothes. And the lower income rental population, the Hispanic markets where the families are bigger, areas where there are a lot of kids, are all good. And if you're a family of 3 or 4 and more, it doesn't mean you wouldn't use a laundromat occasionally. People get caught up, need to get caught up once in a while. If you're washing for 4 people, when you have a single small washer at home, you're washing every day, where you can go to a laundry and get a lot done. If you have comforters and those sorts of things, you can get those done in the laundry. If you have a laundry that offers fluff and fold, you can take your clothes in there and have them done professionally, where they come out much better. I'll be honest with you, much better than you can wash them yourself, as far as their folding and the uniform look when they're done. You can drop off your shirts in a lot of these places, and dry cleaning as well.
Yeah, so I feel a lot of places, a lot of them are not dry cleaning. So I know I'm skipping ahead, but wouldn't that make sense to have a dry cleaning, a laundromat, and a folding service? Because a lot of dry cleanings now do the folding, right? So they've added that service. There's one in Chicago where I used to live. I went there for all the time. CD1 Cleaners. It was very good. It was very cheap. It was so amazing how like a dry cleaning bill in Chicago would cost me like to do a suit $8, and in Florida it'd be $16. Like it just, or to do a shirt 99 cents, and in Florida it was like $4. It just killed me. And that was one of the cheaper ones. So it was very interesting to see. Well,
it's an important service, and once again, because so many laundries are still unattended, as you mentioned first, and that's the perception. We have a terrible perception problem in our business, because you go into laundries that have been let go by people that do it because they can, and it doesn't speak well of our industry when people see this. You go in and there's homeless people hanging out, or it stinks in there, with mildew, or places isn't kept up, machines are out of order, and there are a number of sources. But we take those locations and retool them and put in a model that makes sense going forward. And we take stores that are maybe doing $10,000 and $12,000 in a total month and turn them into $40,000 stores.
So let me go back to you here. So location, are you saying location is not that important, like busy streets, or like it could be off a side street? Because, you know, if people are looking for a laundromat, they'll be like, how important is location of the actual laundromat? So are you looking for a lot of high volume traffic to get noticed, or that's not that important?
Well, you know, there's some balance here, but certainly there are prime locations. You know, in Los Angeles, we have Koreatown, which has a number of very large laundries doing $50,000 to $100,000 a month, you know, which is a very high volume for our business because our costs are relatively low, and the involvement even in those large laundries is relatively low. And that's because you have a density of 120,000 per mile. But our average is in the 32,000 per mile, and they do quite well too. The makeup of the population is important to consider, and the approach to the market is important to consider, as is the vending rates. You know, I've noticed one thing because I'm in thousands of laundries. There's about 40,000 of these across the country, by the way, that that we can verify. There's a lot of others that really can't. And you know, for the most part, they're unattended and self-service stores. But we go into these areas and turn them around all the time.
So what's the ideal square footage where you're going to get more bang for your buck? You know, based on how many machines, or, you know what I mean?
Okay. Well, you know, as a norm, we're looking at rents of about 25%. And granted, there are a lot of laundries paying a much higher percentile than that aren't being well taken care of. Stores that are at model and operating well, some of them are much lower. Some people own their businesses. But typically, we look at a model base of about 25% of the rent. So when we're looking at locations, we have to take a look at the market capabilities of that, and we have to establish an approach. But again, we have 100% market. The ancillary businesses are important to shore up some of these stores in some areas. You know, you have to remember, when a store is built, there are ground fees and a lot of ground plumbing, electricity is brought in. It's not uncommon to spend $300,000 on the development of the laundry without buying a piece of equipment yet.
Oh, wow.
You know, putting in $400,000 or $500,000 worth of equipment. Laundries are built out as low as $350,000 or $400,000 when they're very small. But with an average cost of a machine today at almost $5,000, and in some cases over, you know, because we're using more big and real commercial machines. We're not using those top load style anymore that you used to see. And of course, the small small
cheap ones
don't really work very long. They last about 4 or 5 years in the laundry is about it, because they get beat up too much and they're sensitive beyond that. So the bolt down machines, you know, they're running about $120 to $140 per pound of wash, which means a 30-pound washer, you know, a 40-pound washer, and so on. The medium size washer is about 32 pounds now in most areas. So, you know, you can kind of see the cost of putting in a laundry very high. We don't do that without some research. We don't go put a store there without looking into the market. And if we have time, I'll tell you a real quick story.
Sure, go ahead.
We do what we call retooling, which is basically developing a new model, putting in new equipment, remodeling the store, and all those things. When we've retooled hundreds of stores. I grew up in Glendale, California, and in the 50s. I'm an old guy, and at that time, the apartment boom was just really going crazy. And they weren't building washer and dryer facilities in a lot of these. They had service porches in some, but for the most part, you know, people needed to use a laundry, and the laundry started to boom. It had only been recently before that a meter was actually developed that could be put onto a washing machine. You know, so and now with that done, that opportunity again. In 1959, a laundry was being built in my neighborhood. I was a 9-year-old kid. And we played in that thing all through the development. When they dug up the trench and entrenched in and put in the sewers, when they were building it out, you know, kids play. And we did. We played in that store watching it get built. And then later on, after it was built, we'd go in there and lift the front of the machines up and scoop out the nickels and dimes from underneath the machines that would fall through the cracks and go to the movies, then come back and ride in the dryers that were free, turn the heat down. So the laundry was a kick. It was unattended, free dryers, and money underneath the machine. So it was just wonderful. And then 3 years ago, my son-in-law, who's my partner, is Chris Mason, and I had the pleasure of retooling that store. Fantastic location still, after all these years. All this time has gone by. And that's like new, and it's doing tremendous numbers. And story after story is like that. The opportunities are vast in this business, but it takes some dedication. It takes a willingness to accommodate the marketplace. We're a community business, a community service business, first and foremost. I lost your voice.
Sorry, your startup costs is approximately, you would say, if I start from scratch, let's start from scratch. What's the startup cost all in? Machines, retrofit a location, what's it going to cost me?
Well, say you had a store of about 2,600 square feet, which is a good sized store. You know, it's large enough to do high volume and all that sort of thing. So the startups cost, the construction, you know, the engineering can be 15 to 25,000 in itself, maybe even more. Then you have to get the permits. In some cases,
right. Give me a ballpark.
Well, it's going to vary from everywhere to everywhere. In San Diego, starting up a laundry would probably be $600,000 or $700,000. The sewer fees are high, and in other areas, if we go out into places that are more lenient in those directions, and then we might be able to build that same laundry for $4 and a quarter. You know, but
also before I go into my line, we have people from all over the world that listen to this, and a lot of places, especially in Europe, there's not a lot of place for a laundry, stuff like that. Are you seeing, I'm sure you have vast experience, is it more profitable overseas, or is it still more profitable in America?
Well, there are places where laundries do very well all around the world, but I wouldn't leave California to go into this business. Or wouldn't leave the United States to go into this business. This is an excellent opportunities. They're all here that I know of, and I'm not familiar with the
foreigners that invest in laundromats because it's a very hands-off business. So they come in and it heads off. So let's say I'm 500,000, 600,000. Now let's talk about marketing. Is it kind of like, I put it on Google, I put it, stuff like that. Do people do marketing for the laundromat services when they start off, or is it always an ongoing marketing you do to get more people?
Well, ideally you would donate about 1% of your gross to advertising and marketing, and a lot of that would be exterior signs. When you have a grand opening or a major event, you might put out flyers. They get kind of expensive to put out 5,000 or 10,000 flyers and have them hand delivered to the doors as an individual package. Certainly the search engines are good. All the social media is important to be part of and to keep up on. A lot of them don't follow their reviews well enough, and they need to do that. But marketing is a lot word of mouth. When people like a laundry, if they use it regularly, they refer to it as my laundry. Oh, you should try my laundry. And you hear these statements made by people. I hear them in the stores. So a lot of businesses exposure from the center. We usually anchor or are anchored by a grocery store or in a strip center. And laundromats were essential in the early development of strip centers, because what a great idea. Buy a piece of property, put a laundry in it, build out some extra space, and rent some other compatible businesses at a higher rental rate, and then sell the laundry off and keep the property. That was the early model, and it went like crazy. It's still good. You can find the location.
Are you seeing a bigger return on year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Because when you're brand new, there's a ramp up cost that you're not making as much, or is it pretty much almost, you're making money from, not as much money, but you're making money from when you quickly open?
Well, base model is a profitable model, and it will bring you to that 20%. And we like to get there between 3 and 6 months after development.
Oh, even so, you're talking about a 20%.
We're pretty quick. Yeah, but right. Yeah, at that point, that's the base level. But we look to get that store up to the 26th percentile, and that's cash on cash. You can borrow about 60% to 65% from industry sources for all of this. So
SBA
off over
SBA
7
loan.
years.
The SBA loan, for those who don't know, it's a government loan. Do they
Well,
lend out for laundromat?
SBA is a lender. It's not as dominant as it once was because they're more strict and they don't like selling businesses to people who aren't in the business. And most of the entries are new investors into this business. So our industry, and the other thing, of course, is that if you're buying an existing laundry, good records are not always available. Taxes are kind of distorted for various reasons, and it makes SBA financing difficult. Where our lenders look at the base.
People are keeping the cash in the quarters, is what you're basically saying, which is changing with all the credit card systems and the payment system. I imagine that that's probably streamlining the process. So, correct, would you agree that a lot of people obviously not turning in the quarters, they do what they do in a cash business, very similar to other people. But now with all the payment systems and all that, it's probably, you can't really fake that because you have statements. So
with the new systems, it's much harder to fake. Some squeeze can still be done, but we don't promote that.
of course I'm saying, but you know what I'm talking.
Yeah, well, I never had. It's not necessary. There are so many tax advantages to owning a laundry already, and why you would want to show a lower income. And but anyway, that's a different argument. But because of that, the lending institutions that know our businesses take a look at our diligence, and they're looking at the same issues that we look at. And they'll loan happily on those reports because we use.
So what's the biggest drawback in this industry? So what's the biggest downside in your opinion, of this sort of a coin-operated business?
Well, the same thing that it's the best. The best and the worst are the same issue. It's too easy to operate, so which lends itself to deterioration, to dirty operations, and to underperforming laundries. On the other hand, that's what the people want. They want to be involved. You can have both. My son-in-law operates a store an hour and 20 minutes away from his home, which we don't recommend, but it worked out that way. There was an opportunity for a specific store that had been a target of mine for almost 10 years. I'm always on the target stores, are the ones I'm going to wait for and always keep tabs of until they finally do come available. And they do. So this store did come available. We didn't have a laundry client at the time that was ready to take it on because it was a pretty major project. The rent was high and everything else, but I knew that store and I knew the market. So Chris and his father got together and went ahead and bought it. We retooled it, and it went from 12,000 to 30,000 within months, and it has been a great store ever since.
And what's the profit? Give me an idea of the profit. So you have 30,000 in revenue here. What would be the monthly profit on a 30,000 right now at that store?
Well, it depends on so many different factors, but you're expecting 20%. When we get a store and we generate it like that, we expect 24 to 26% cash on cash of your original investment. Remembering that you're building the asset value.
You also have your profit on a per month basis. So after your costs or expenses, right, if they're financing the equipment, everything like that. So that $30,000 store, and they probably bought it. So that's probably there. So are we talking about a $6,000 profit? Are we talking about $10,000 profit? Like, what are we looking at?
No, you're talking 5-figure profits. A $600,000 store would basically give you a 6-figure profit line, of course.
No, but I was talking about on a monthly basis, this 30,000. Let's say that month they made X amount of profit. When you take everything out, you pay what to pay.
Well, in one store it could be 5 or 6,000. In another store it could be 12 or 14. It depends.
What about that store? I'm talking about your.
In that store. Well, I don't want to divulge the profits. They're doing very well, but it's in. They're in a.
I got a lot of money.
It's a 6-figure. Let me just say it's a 6-figure profit, if that's fair.
And let me ask you a question back. The acquisition price. So now we'll talk about the acquisition, because you see a lot of on websites like Biz Buy Sell. It seems like the coin operated are like the lowest form of. It's really giving it like a bad branding in a way, right? It kind of like low level business. It's kind of like mobile homes almost, right? Like that notion, which I know it's not. And I have some clients in mobile homes that make a lot of money.
Right.
But it's got that very low kind of appeal to it as well. But the acquisition of that, like that particular store, what was an acquisition? So I had an idea of what a store costs to acquire because obviously it wasn't doing very well. Did you get like a great deal on it? Or is there a multiple that you got it? Or like, okay, it makes N amount, so we bought it for this multiple, or we actually, you know, got a good deal with it. It doesn't really work that way on multiples. You kind of put an offer out there and see what happens. Or is it standardized, the selling of a laundromat?
Well, okay. Let me try it this way. You have a base model value, okay, or a base value for a laundry of about 60 times monthly net, which is equals out to a 20% cash on cash return, right? But when we sell a laundry, there's a deterioration level that is reached. Once again, the business is there for a lifetime. The equipment is not. So we have to value the equipment. It's a complicated business model. It really is. And you have to understand so many physical elements, market elements, competitive issues. It all has to be kind of, so when we sell a store, we sell a future, when we buy an existing store, we might only pay 45 times, 50 times net or monthly net, okay, because it's in that state. Even though, but that's an add back issue. In other words, you're starting at 60 and you would add back based on the elements, the quality of the lease, the quality of the equipment, the market capabilities, the potential for the model to go forward at a greater pace.
Are they hard to buy or harder to sell?
Well, I would say they're probably equaling out in that regard. You know, they're about as hard to buy as they are to sell. Too many people buy them without knowing the business and they run into trouble. Then they put it on the market. They try to recoup their investment. It might take them 2-3 years to sell it that way, you know, because they didn't buy it right. But right. The people who buy it right and they build a good model, we can sell those pretty quick, but they typically want a pretty high valuation. So it may slow down the sale for that reason. But a well-listed laundry should sell in about 3 months.
So in terms of people, who do I need to hire? How many people do I really need? Or do I need anybody? Or do I just like, is this like a part-time person? Or because I'm not going to pick up the coins and stuff like that.
Well, the variety of models is so varied that each one will be dependent. Essentially, at the minimum, you need somebody to go in once a day to spot check it, and at night again to close it down and clean it up. Okay, that's the minimum you need. You'll need to go in 1 to 2 times a week to do the collections. You should operate it by cameras in that regard. And that's kind of the minimum model. That is the self-service, unattended laundry model that you see so many of. And sometimes that can work well if the person has good, creates good policies and follows them and make sure he's keeping up on the maintenance, then that can be a great model in itself. From there,
you need someone to go in and like fine-tune the machines and test the machine type of thing, or is that usually the company that supplies that, or also the same company that like kind of repairs?
Yeah. Well, there are independent service techs and there are companies, and each laundry owner will find somebody they like, you know, to do that work, and that's a different category in the expense column than right. The maintenance. The maintenance issue, just as a rule, we use a 10 percentile level for cost of operations. In other words, if you're doing $10,000 a month, and you have only $1,000 that you can afford within that model to pay for somebody to go in, clean it up, and keep it operating, which is pretty good for a small store, but it may not be very good for somebody that's doing, you know, $20,000. They may need to pay more than that $2,000 that they would be allotted, the 10% of 20. So, and if they have to, then we look at the ancillaries to shore that up. We also find that an attended laundry will turn the machines 1.5 to 1 times more per day than an unattended laundry, being the same laundry. We've tested that in many ways, and we're confident of that statement. So there's another benefit that we don't use in the multiplier to the attended laundry.
Last question, which is a 2-part question. I want you to end on exactly what is it that you do for people that I want to end up. But I want to say, if you right now, people are to get started, you say the ideal model that people should start, and of course be able to call you because they ain't doing it themselves, because there's a lot to this business just by this conversation. A lot of people, but the ideal model, is it you got the laundromat, you got the dry cleaner, you got the fluff thing. Like, what's the ideal full maximization right now to get the highest ROI return on one's investment would you recommend? And you're not allowed to say depends.
Yeah, so let's pick a model because it's just too.
Well, tell me the ideal model. You say JT.
Well, no, okay. Let's pick that 2,600 square foot model again. Okay, and say that and you're in an area, a mixed population with maybe a 35 or 40% renter occupancy. You've got 2.6 people per household, kind of a median market range. You know, you've got a fair amount of Hispanics, but not a dominant one. So that would be a good kind of median style market area. To build that, you would probably, if you were at 2,600 feet, you would probably have it attended, 10 hours of the 16-hour workday, opening day, somewhere in there, maybe 12. You would be looking to build that up to about $26,000 a month, about $1,000 or so. That's pretty much about 10 times the space. You would be looking to lease that space at about 25% of that amount, and looking forward to trying to dwindle that down to 20 if possible. You would be putting in a model that would take care of the community as it's needed. In other words, if you have issues in the store, you would have to have more security, more attendance, and that sort of stuff. You'd manage by cameras. You would have, ideally, you would have the hybrid pay system where you take both quarters and some other way that would minimize your need to go to the stores often to collect the quarters and put them back into the change machine. That's kind of the happy one.
So no dry cleaning in there, no fluff and fold. Like
those are added. Those are individually selected ancillaries. I like those ancillaries in most markets, okay? But, there's space issues, and there's just the logic of it, But if we have to pay, if we're doing $25,000 a month in business, and I have a $4,000 payroll that I'm going to need to pay in order to operate that store successfully, I need to make up the difference somewhere, okay? It's just that simple.
So where can people contact you? Do they have a website, Chuck, or something like that? If people are watching this and they want to cha-ching.
Yes, PBIlaundry.com. That's it.
So last question.
Laundry.com.
Mm-hmm. I'm JT Foxx. I really don't have time to deal with this nonsense. I'm busy as it is, but I'm interested. I like making money. I like stuff like that. So what could you do for me to facilitate? Would you be able to find me some good deals out there? Be like, JT, I think you should buy this. And kind of turnkey it as much as possible, because there's no way I'm going and dealing with that. I run too many things to be doing that as well. But is that the type of thing that you would be able to facilitate?
You are a wheelhouse kind of a client for us. I'll tell you that, because that is the person that's coming to us. They may have grander ideas, but mainly they just want this thing to be simple. They want a good cash flowing business and want to minimize their issues. When we get to a client in, we introduce them to this business and make sure they start to understand the complexities of the models, and that's where things fall apart for people, is that they don't have sufficient understanding. So we start there. We prefer that you don't even look at a laundry unless you just happen to be walking around, but we don't want you talking to people and stuff like that until you've had an opportunity to know what you're talking about, because you might burn down an opportunity out there of your lack of knowledge. You might and you're going to get exposed to, you're going to be the only one out there who doesn't have the incentive of closing a sale. Your incentive is of investing in a good business. So you have to keep that in mind. So we start a search process. Once we get them started, we have a package and a program that we use, and we start searching for them and sending out information to laundry owners. We also teach them how to search on their own, encourage them to start doing that. When laundries come up that look interesting to us, we do a thorough review on it to try to value the store. stores are tend to be valued higher than their true value, or listed at much higher than their true value, because they're all looking at, well, the 60 times net, that's good. Well, that's here. Yeah, but the machines are gone. You're going to have to put another $180,000 to keep that 60 grand net. You have to account for those things. So we start putting values on store. When we find one that looks like it's going to work, then we go after it and do it.
Are you able to pick up deals at a good, at below market, or is it just really not as much? Be able to find great deals. You know what I mean? Like a real estate, I do a lot of real estate. I can find a great deal, or is it harder to find great deals on that as well?
Well, great deals are in the gray. You know, the on black and white, it may not be as good a deal as it is, and that's what you have to identify.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what my vision, Chuck.
People during certain times, people get anxious and they do sell them, and we're not seeing that right now.
Interesting. So, Chuck, here's my vision. All right, and if you can make this happen, I'm all open to it. So,
Okay.
So start off with 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what we do is we create that kind of sustainable model under a brand. And if
Right.
it shows that I'm making very good money, then all my clients who are probably watching this to be like, wow, look at JT's making money in a laundromat. They're going to want to come in. And then we scale to 3, 4, 500, like I've done in real estate, like I've done pretty much in many different businesses that I own. And obviously working through you to kind of put that in there. And that's my vision. So I need a good one to start, to have a model, to be proof, like there's a proof of concept, something like that. But in the back of the mind of keep, acquiring that, because once it makes money, especially in a turnkey situation like that, people go, I also have a private equity that I own that if the returns are there, something that I would definitely look into as well. So that's the mind. You can send Sam a proposal on that as well. We got convinced that you know your stuff, and let's see if there's a relationship there. Or anybody wants to contact Chuck directly, you can. Fantastic guy, very knowledgeable, as you can see. I'm so excited. I think I'm going to go do my own laundry today. So that's how excited. I think I got like this giant machine where I just put everything in and it works, but I don't know. I don't do that as well, but I like the cash on cash return of that as well. So I really appreciate it, Chuck. Thank you so much for being there. I look forward to reconnecting. And JT Foxx laundromat. That's probably not good for my brand. But I got Bubbles laundromat.
The Foxx. That's not a bad name.
That's you're now
Wash
you're
it,
talking
the
about
Foxx. Yeah, the Foxx.
You know what? I don't really care what it is as long as it makes money. But it's also duplicable. Like it's scalable and built in.
And that's a fact. That's a fact. And that's exactly what we're looking for are the kinds of clients that maybe only do want one laundry, but are creating a brand in their community and maintaining it well. And that can be duplicated over and over again. Opportunities come the way periodically. We get a lot of walkaways, and those are the real opportunities. We get. We had a store that where a guy he bought it for a lot of money. They opened a new store near him, and then this store went to heck, and the guy sold it for nothing. We sold it to a client of ours, and because we believed in it, and we've retooled it. And that store, where it was down to around $18,000 a month, is approaching 40 now, even in the COVID situation, which is pretty amazing. So that's a tremendous opportunity, and those do come our way periodically, but not every day. Most of the time you're paying for the market and going from there. So we have to see what the store has in it now, what needs to be done to it, and see if the numbers work in each case. Just that simple.
Well, very, 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 very excited to have that as well. You're a great guy, and here's the thing too: a random message could lead to the building of an empire.
Right.
Chuck Post, breaking news. Chuck Post.
PBIlaundry.com.
Thank you, Chuck. Great guy. Check out that website, everybody. Thank you.